Hello everyone, this is Leo from the Monkeys Making Misplace. Today I'll be doing the Claudine deck profile. This deck's actually really fun. I didn't think it was going to be as fun as, you know, some of the other decks I've done, but, I wanted to give this and some of these decks that don't get as much representation a bit of a chance. Obviously these builds aren't going to be, perfect, I think these decks, since they don't really have any actual support, might have it a little bit more rough than some of the other decks. I mean, you'll see when you see the deck that Cat's playing that isn't as true because of the way the Vanguard itself that he is playing works. But Claudine has 3 effects. The first one says she can retire 3 rearguards to gain plus 1 drive, and all of your plant tokens get plus 5. Then you can bind an order from drop to call 2 plant tokens. And then when she attacks, you can Soul Blast one to choose one of your plant tokens, stand it, and it gets plus 5 until end of turn for every 2 order cards with different card names in total in your drop and bind. So it's guaranteed 4 attacks on board, but each turn you essentially have to kill 3 rear guards to get a plus 5 and then an extra drive, but you can bind in order to get back 2. So essentially you only have to lose a rear guard every turn as long as you're playing boards. As for the ride line, we're playing the Zorgo ride line because obviously this deck is going to be order heavy. You want to put orders in the discard, so it fits perfectly. There is a specific order that you want to be playing with this deck. Pretty much every turn is what you're trying to get it, but obviously that's the ride line. For grade 3s, we have 3 extra copies of Claudine for Persona Ride because we just want to have a big power for big columns. Then grade 2s, one of my favorite cards in this deck is Shadow Cloak, because when he's placed from hand on rear, you can search your deck for up to 1 order card, reveal it, and if your drop has an order card with the same name, you get to keep it in hand. But if you don't, you have to discard a card. So it allows you to just thin your deck and then just put cards in drop for Claudine's second effect to get more power, as well as her third effect, where you can do that restanding. So Shadow Cloak is really good. Then he also gets plus 5 whenever you play an order. Doesn't really come up that often, but it is just a good way to get some extra power. Then we have 3 copies of Prod Pollen Raphilis. When she's placed on rear, she makes 2 plant tokens, and obviously that's what the majority of what we're trying to make on this deck is, because plant tokens are kind of what get most power in this deck. You could replace her with the grade 2 that will kill itself at the end of turn to just make 2, but I think either of these could work just fine. Then moving on to grade 1s, we have 4 copies of Burrow Mushrooms. Obviously, this card has seen play in almost every Stoichea deck simply because of the fact that it's 2 bodies on 1 card, and it also produces soul. This is just an incredibly good card. If you don't have a set of it, I would recommend picking it up. It's not an expensive card anyway, so picking it up wouldn't cost you much. Then we have 3 copies of Diantha. I was normally really hesitant about playing Diantha as she's kind of expensive, but with the reprint and triple drive booster, her price has tanked a little bit, so it shouldn't be as expensive to get yourself a set of these, but you can always replace them with something cheaper, maybe something more orders, anything like that. You could even replace her with this next card, which is Bist Ayatvas. I don't know. So it's the Dragon Tree Wretch. We don't use it for that first ability. We don't need Dragon Tree markers. We don't care about Dragon Tree markers. But the second ability says that if your Vanguard's grade 3, you can counterblast 1, soul blast 1, choose a normal order from your drop, put it in your hand. This allows you to get back the normal orders that you are wanting to use more than once, which we'll see which one it is. And then Perfect Guards, we're just playing the 4 vanillas, just because we didn't want to swap in most of our good stuff into these decks. You'll see in Cats, he also doesn't have it, but you can play the Blitz. Excuse me. You can play the Blitz order just fine in this deck. Since these are a little bit more for fun, we're not taking it as seriously, but obviously play the Blitz if you have the Blitz. Then we're going to move into the orders, starting with these can really be anything. They're not specific. We're playing a copy of Wild Intelligence, a copy of Mythiarch Habitat, a copy of Spiritual Body Condensation, a copy of In the Dim Darkness, the Frozen Resentment, a copy of Command of Death's Restraint, Regurgitation of From the Underworld, and the Chalice. Any orders can really work. You don't need to play these 7 specifically. They just need to be different, because most of the time you'll just be pitching them. you really don't want to have to ever be playing any of these orders, so they can just be pitch fodder. As long as there's 7 different named orders, you should be fine. Obviously, this could be Angel Ladder, it could be Forbidal, although Forbidal is not really going to do anything in this deck, but if you're just going to pitch it, then it doesn't really matter. It can be the Blitz order, Evergreen Transfer, just any order would work. A Chalice, I think, is just the best one, so you can get Persona Ride. I think out of all of these, the one that you might have to play is Chalice. But all of these are just pitch fodders, things you want to get in the discard. You don't ever really want to be playing these because the order that we want to be playing every turn is Blessing to the Flowering Buds. This one says, until the end of turn, all of your heroes with original power 5,000 or less get plus 10,000, and when this unit attack hits, you may return this unit to your hand. So you get to just turn your plant tokens into 15Ks, and then with Claudine's effect, they become 20Ks base. So if you make a board full of plant tokens, you'll have 40K column on the right, 40K column on the left, and then your Vanguard will be swinging for 33 triple drive. So that's pretty good. That second ability where you can just bounce them to your hand, not really gonna ever really happen. You're not really gonna be bouncing them to hand, but it does let you call triggers and just be like, well, I can get my triggers back because either they waste guard using on the rear guard, and sure, I'll trade a, most of the time you'll be trading 2 15K shields for your attack. So if they lose 2 and you have to sacrifice 1, it's not the worst trade. Obviously, you really don't want to be calling your triggers, but there is an upside to it, so you can get your cards back. But this is the card you're going to be playing. You can do this if you go second. The deck does really like going second. If you can get yourself a starting hand that has 2 copies of Burrow Mushrooms and then a Blessing Flower, and then the Blessing to the Flowering Buds, you will just have 2 30K swings right off the bat. And that's going to be impossible for most decks to guard. Like, your Vanguard is going to be swinging for 8K, sure, but these will be swinging for 30K twice, which is going to be, it's going to be so much power that your opponent is just not going to be able to handle. So look, if you're mulliganing for this deck, definitely make sure to keep Burrow Mushrooms and the Blessing to the Flower Buds. I would even suggest mulliganing to get those cards, because that aggression early on is so strong. For triggers, Stoicheia, OT, we're playing just regular triggers here, draws. You could play fronts in this deck, either one works. You do want it to just find more pieces, you can. Since we're playing 10 orders, you do have a chance that you won't have enough shields, so draws do help it, but fronts are just bigger shield. And then we're playing 8 crits, since we gain triple drive. Being able to just crit your opponent out of the game is always good. And then obviously we're just playing 4 heals, nothing too crazy there. The deck's actually really fun. I was able to pull off that combo with the Burrow Mushrooms and the Grade 0 order, and I was able to put out that 30K pressure super early, starting at my Grade 1 turn, and just being able to just go, hey, 30K was just too much for Cat's deck to handle. But that'll be all for today. I thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.